The Performance Committee will now come to order. We are convened as of 1:33 p.m. I would respectfully ask everyone attending this meeting to mute yourself unless you are recognized to speak. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Please note that under the current circumstances, the official meetings of the RTD Board of Directors are being held remotely in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare. For the immediate future, the official meetings of the Board of Directors will be held via Zoom and will be audio and video recorded. Please visit rtd-denver.com to access meeting recordings and unofficial meeting minutes. Directors and members of staff, for the sake of the record, if you would like to be acknowledged during this afternoon's proceedings, I would ask you to please raise your virtual hand and wait for me to call you before proceeding to speak. Directors and staff participating by phone can also raise their virtual hands to indicate they would like to speak by pressing *9. To toggle your mute setting on the phone, press *6. I would now like to call the roll for the committee members. Chair Busick. No Chair Busick. Director Catlin.
I'm here. Director Busick told me that he had an appointment down at the Secretary of State's office to turn in his petitions.
No worries. I am here, Director Deschel. Director Sloan.
Here.
Director Lewis. No Director Lewis. General Counsel Snyder or Ms. McManus, can you confirm that 3 of 5 is sufficient to have a quorum?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful, thank you. I'd also like to note for the record that we're joined today by Director Rivera-Malpiedi, Director Davidson, and I don't see anyone else on my list. Director Sloan, I see you have your hand raised.
I do. Director Busick said he will be calling in on his phone as soon as he is able to do so. And I would like to add that I have hopefully an air conditioning repair person coming, and believe me, I will let them in.
Please do. Please do. And I see Director Whitmore has joined us as well. Hello, Director Whitmore. I'd like to open public comment to anyone who would like to address the committee regarding any topic listed in the published meeting agenda. If you wish to speak and have not already done so, please either raise your virtual hand or press *9 on your phone. Staff will unmute you when it is your turn to speak. If you are dialed in, press *6 to toggle your mute settings. Please bear in mind that by participating in this process, you are being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, then your comments will need to be submitted in writing. If any speaker has documentation or reference materials for the committee, or if any member of the public would like to submit written comments, please email those materials to the board office at the following email address: rtd.boardoffice@rtd-denver.com. During public comment, the committee will not offer comments or responses. Directors or staff may contact speakers following their comments if they raise matters that lend themselves to follow-up. Speakers should begin their remarks by stating their names, and each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. Barbara, are there any speakers in the queue?
I see no speakers in the queue.
Wonderful, thank you. Barbara, were there any emailed comments received for today's meeting?
There were not.
With no participants in the queue, we will close the public comment period at this time. There's one discussion item for today's meeting, and that's evaluating board performance. As part of the agenda, 3 articles were distributed around to folks looking at board performance. And just as a reminder, I think Director Lewis and I originally brought forward the idea of board performance through this committee because it directly impacts our GM and CEO's performance and our performance as an agency. And so curious if anyone, we last time brought forward the 360 review process and what that might look like. I know the 3 articles that were sent out, they were originally sent by Director Davidson. And if folks have any, curious if folks have any thoughts on what was shared, what you think makes sense for next steps, as that was sort of the ask that was given back to us.
I see Director Rivera Malpieti's hand.
Yeah, Director Rivera Malpieti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know what? I have been thinking about this for a long time since you guys had first brought it up. And I would have to say that I am adamantly opposed to the Board of Directors being evaluated. I think that lies in the hands of the voters who voted me into office. And it is up to them to not vote me in if I don't do a good job. I don't think it is the role of the Board of Directors to evaluate each other. Our responsibility is to our respective communities. So I would just like for the record to say that I am adamantly opposed. I think it shows gross disrespect to our constituents who put us into these seats. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to clarify the intent, right? The intent is not, well, this person should be, this person shouldn't be. The intent is how do we function better as a board, given our fiduciary duty to the entire agency, given past history of sometimes board members interfering with the GM CEO's performance, the way in which we're perceived as community value, and sort of operating through that lens. And so that was, but I hear you that you think that should be fully in the voters' discretion. So
I also think it's kind of a slippery slope to think that there might be something put into place where board members will adhere to if they're not doing something. That's why we have the bylaws, and that's why we do certain things. And in fact, try to evoke some of that in the past with no success, because everybody works independently as their own elected officials. So I see it being really, really problematic in trying just to manage it. Who's going to do it? Who's going to have the authority to implement that? How is that going to work out? And what does that look like legally?
yeah. Director, I see Director Sloan is next.
I believe Director Catlin was before me, so I would be happy to defer to Peggy.
Thank you, Director Sloan. You know, I think Director Rivera Malpieti brings up some valid points. I did read all 3 articles, and I found them to be helpful, kind of as guidance, particularly the second article. I thought that was well done. I know that I had a conversation with Director Busick this morning, and he mentioned that he thought, as Director Rivera Malpieti said, it is a slippery slope and it's a little bit ripe for mischief. But I have a suggestion. And, you know, this committee was really established originally before it changed to the Performance Committee as the General Manager Oversight Committee. And I think that is our primary responsibility as a committee. But I would suggest that we are embarking on this internal audit function by outsourcing to Reuben Brown. And they have done their risk assessment, and they're getting ready to do a new risk assessment in their scope of work. But as Director Deschel, as you have pointed out on a number of occasions, one of the highest rated risks to this agency was that of the board itself. And it seems to me that if they use their audit plan to address these high areas of risk, that one of the things they might audit is the board and the board function itself. And we have the ability to maybe suggest to Reuben Brown that, you know, we're looking at some evaluations of the board, and this might be the appropriate place to do it. So I just offer that as a suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, Director Sloan.
Thank you. That is a very interesting idea, Director Catlin, because there is a direct connection between the internal audit function and the board's operation. And I appreciate Director Rivera Malpieti's comments too. Although I think there's something there. I don't know whether it should be the Performance Committee or the Audit Committee. I too read the attachments to the agenda, and it does appear to be commonly accepted practice for boards to evaluate themselves, and an important thing to do. It also appeared from the materials that it's really not the individual directors who interfere with the performance of the corporation or agencies. It is the interaction and culture. We already have the structure and established procedures that the articles say, are the bottom line, but you have to go beyond that. It seems to me it's the interaction between board members themselves and their discussions and willingness to dissent that's the important thing to look at, not necessarily evaluating individual directors. Another important thing is the relationship between the board and management, particularly the CEO. And it seems like that could be evaluated and looked into without any interference with the election process itself. So, I think I really appreciate Director Deschel and Lewis bringing this up, because it is something central to the operation of the board itself and ultimately the agency. But again, this committee, internal audit, another committee, and working it through so it is not in any way a criticism of the voting process itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Catlin.
Thanks for another bite of the apple. The other item I wanted to remind us all of is that we have an annual retreat. And typically that retreat, this last time we focused on our strategic priorities and strategic plan, but customarily we have also discussed ways in which the board can work well together and then also work with staff. So we already kind of have that placeholder to conduct some of these things, and we could take a look at those articles, and in the spirit of higher performance board, we can take a look at that and have a discussion as part of our annual retreat. And then I also wanted to add that, and that's my concern about just adding something else in our work activities and workflow. But the other thing that when I thought about internal audit and having our outsourced auditors do this function, it does remove some of the, well, it provides an independent look and an honest look that's not colored with maybe politics or personality or anything like that. So that's why I came up with that idea, but I'm open to other suggestions. And I want to reiterate, I really do appreciate the spirit in which Directors Deschel and Lewis came to us with this. And I also want to acknowledge Director Davidson for providing us with the materials to review. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Director Davidson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thanks to everybody for the comments. I think I wanted to just say two things, and thanks for allowing me to participate in the committee here. One is I like the idea of really looking to our audit function, since this was identified as a risk. And I think that's a great place for us to start some discussions. So I think I just want to mention that. And then the last thing I want to do is throw more mud in the water and throw more homework at everybody here. But something else is coming to mind, which is, it seems to be there's two things that we've talked about. And Dr. Catlin, thanks for mentioning the retreat. There's performance, but performance would be measured against, what kind of board we want to be. What do we want to be? And we've had the discussion around, policy, versus activity in the business. And there's another article that comes to mind that is from, I think, 2004, that I'd be happy to submit to the group, that actually has a suggested evaluation that board and senior leadership can submit in terms of what they think the board involvement should be in various activities. And this results in a definition of a couple of different types of boards: the passive board, a certifying board, an engaged board, an intervening board, or an operating board. And it would be very interesting, and perhaps this is something we think about for a future retreat when we're all together. I would be very curious to see how the board would evaluate our involvement in terms of what it currently is and what it should be. And I would be very curious from senior leadership, the same, what the evaluation of current board activity level is and what it should be. And that might give an interesting framework to outline what we want the board to be like, which then could create a framework from which we could evaluate ourselves in the future. So this may be kind of a long path, and I know I'm not really providing a lot of clarity. I'm just providing some more thought. But that's just one thing that comes to mind, is it seems that we have two different objectives here: performance evaluation, and then also who do we want to be as a board? What's the best way for this board to operate? So I'll defer to the committee here, and certainly to our board chair on how to proceed with that. But just wanted to make those comments, and thanks again, Dr. Catlin, for bringing up the audit committee as a mechanism. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Director Davidson, and thanks for your sending the articles. And I think the board would benefit from seeing just what that looks like, just as food for thought. And I think, Director Catlett, I really like your approach as well, right? Which is that if we know that audit, based on our most recent audit, the board is the greatest risk, then maybe we should be approaching it from that vantage point and through audit. And the auditors may recommend that we evaluate how we're doing, right? And maybe that shifts our evaluation mechanism, which is, are we doing our duty to the agency by allowing general manager and CEO to function in the way that she needs to through this committee's lens? But on a more broader note, right, are we de-risking? Are we mitigating some of that risk by adjusting our function? And I think it's a natural tension that we're going to end up having, right? The tension between being elected and what that means to different individuals, and our fiduciary duties to act in the best interest of the agency. And I think that's part of the nature of the beast. And I think everyone comes down slightly differently on that issue. So I also really appreciate everyone sort of running with this, what I think was the intent of the smaller committees, which is bring ideas, let's pick them apart, let's see what we think, and let's go from there, right? And I no pride in authorship or motivation on my side, right? If it sounds like what I'm hearing from folks is maybe an alternative approach makes sense, the spirit of it sounds good, but the method might not be right. And so I'm looking forward to sort of continuing to critically look at this issue and think through where we go next. And I'll talk to Director Lewis as well, see what she wants to do. Personally, I think, seeing what our auditors have to say, as well as looking at, the article from 2004 from Director Davidson will be a great mechanism. Does anyone have any other comments, thoughts, opinions? Okay. Oh, yes, Director Sloan.
I am going to take it upon myself to see if there's anything out there about boards that are confined to Zoom, because it seems to me if it's the relationship and the normal practices of the board, is really the bottom line for a well-functioning board. That has probably changed in the Zoom years. there's no longer the social atmosphere that was mentioned in the materials. So I will look for that. I would hope somebody has started research on that issue.
Awesome. Thank you. Director Davidson.
Yeah, thanks for letting me participate once again. I just want to say, Director Sloan, yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I'm chuckling because it certainly is a big challenge, and that's a really great point of who's looked into dynamics on remote meetings. So anyway, just thank you and second the interest in how boards are handling that these days. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other matters to discuss? Director Davidson, is that an errant hand?
It sure is. Sorry about that. I'm on mobile.
No worries. I am also on mobile. Laptop's having issues and trying to read. For those of you who chair committees, you all make it look very smooth and easy to balance the script and your phone and your camera and all of that. So anyways, well, with nothing else.
Well done, Director Deschel, for your first try.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, RTD is taking a purposeful pause from scheduling official meetings of the board during the month of August, which will allow time for the board and staff to regroup, refocus, and enhance their efforts for the remainder of calendar year 2022. As such, the next Performance Committee meeting will be Wednesday, September 14th, 2022. Seeing no other discussion, the meeting is adjourned at 1:54 p.m. Thanks, everyone.
Good job, Bobby. It's not easy juggling 3 devices. I did it one time. It's tough. Good job.
Well done.
Talk to you guys soon. Appreciate it.